Our community folks that are here with us. I want to thank Rick Thigpen, who'll be here. Richard Phillips, who'll be here. Arnold Cohen, as well, for being here with us today. Essex County Executive Joe DiVincenzo, who is very important in this process. And obviously our Senator Menendez, for all that he's been trying to do to fight to make sure that we are receiving the same things that other states are receiving around the country. We're here today specifically to talk about the COVID stimulus legislation that has been being debated right now. And since March 14, 2020, we reported our first positive COVID-19 case in the city of Newark, which was soon followed by a shutdown of the entire city. Our community has endured the impact caused by this pandemic. While the first stimulus check was helpful, COVID and all of its implications are still here, and our residents still need help. Many are still out of work, face food insecurity. The city, along with the school system, have delivered over 1 million meals, in fact, 1.7 million meals. People are challenged with paying their rent, and we cannot turn our backs on anyone in the city, so we have to have the resources to be able to support the residents of our community. Locally, we've raised and given out about $6 million in financial interventions from everything from art organizations to rent, to small businesses, to homegrown businesses, but that is simply not enough. We're counting on Congress for the next stimulus round, and Washington has bailed out corporations time after time after time. It's time to help the people with that same tenacity, with that same purpose, and with that same fervor. We're here because the city of Newark and the country needs a second round of help and consistency on the front lines, making sure that we have resources for testing, resources for businesses, stimulus packages for families and residents. We want to continue to support the legislation, and we want to continue to support our senator in his fight down in D.C. with our whole federal delegation, trying to make sure that Newark gets its fair share, that the county gets its fair share, and that the state of New Jersey also gets its fair share. With that being said, I have the pleasure and the honor to introduce our Senator Menendez, who's doing an awesome job down in the Capitol. Thank God for him. Keep up the great work.
Well, thank you, Mayor, very much. Thank you for hosting us today. Thank you for your leadership, considering the state's largest city and its urban density. I think that you have done a fantastic job in making sure that we limited the spread of the virus here in Newark and in responding to it. So we appreciate your leadership. The county executive has done an extraordinary job in getting testing and contact tracing engaged in Essex County. I appreciate Arnie Cohen, who's always an advocate on housing issues. His name is synonymous with housing issues, and appreciate Rick Phillips coming together with us to give a personal story of why what we're fighting for is so important. And I want to thank everyone for being here. I know it's hot, and standing outside, socially distancing and wearing a mask is not the most comfortable thing, but it's what we need to do to contain the spread of the virus. So I want to thank all of you. Thanks to the strong leadership and immediate action by the governor, county executive, and the mayor, and the enormous personal and financial sacrifices each and every New Jerseyan has made, we are in a much better place today. Together, we flattened the curve. We prevented our hospitals from being overrun. We drove down our infection rate and saved lives. But that progress has come at a price. Businesses have closed. Many that are open are still only so at reduced capacity. Thousands upon thousands of our fellow New Jerseyans remain out of work. Our economy has taken a hit, and we're not out of it yet. Unfortunately, while we in New Jersey were working hard to stop the spread, taking responsible, prudent steps and listening to the science and the experts, other states failed to heed our warnings. As we suffered, as we said goodbye to over nearly 16,000 of our loved ones, friends, and neighbors, many ignored the threat, failed to act, and allowed the virus to rage across this country. And because people travel, as long as there is a strong presence of COVID-19 anywhere in America, it can spread everywhere in America. The virus knows no borders, no corner of the country has been spared. And so a national emergency requires a national response. But to this day, 6 months into the pandemic, we still have no national plan coming out of Washington, none. We have no plan to contain the virus, no plan for widespread testing and contact tracing, no plan to ramp up production of vaccines and critical supplies, nothing. All we're getting out of this White House are mixed messages that sow division, undermine science, politicize wearing a mask, and ultimately desensitize the American people to the real public health threat facing us all. Now, Donald Trump did not create coronavirus, but he has done virtually nothing to stop it. Other countries have been able to figure it out, but somehow the greatest country on the planet cannot. It's a global embarrassment. The abject failure by the president has cost American lives, exacerbated the economic pain, and set our nation back years, if not a decade. Americans are dying, they're suffering, and the suffering will only continue. Right now, millions of folks don't know if they still have a job tomorrow. Many are weeks, if not days, from losing their homes. Some cannot even afford basic necessities. States, counties, and cities are literally running out of money. People are angry, they're frustrated, they're scared, and they are turning to Washington for help. Democrats understand the billions we've already delivered to help our hospitals, the unemployed, small businesses, and more is still not enough to address the growing need. Yet we have been forced to wait and wait and wait for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Republicans to come to the table. 2 months ago, the Speaker and Senator Schumer, the Democratic leader, sent the President and Senator McConnell a letter saying, we are going to need to deal with the continuing challenges of the pandemic. Come and negotiate with us. And there was no response. They've let months pass while the virus has taken hold and our economy crumbles. The temporary ban on evictions ended last Friday. The ban on foreclosures will lapse next month. Next month is Saturday. And the extra $600 a week in federal unemployment benefits will expire this week. In response, all we got this past week was hopeless scrambling, Republican infighting, and a President and Senate Majority Leader who have yet to put up a serious proposal that will actually help the American people. The reality is, just like health care, they have no plan, but we do. I say this, if you cannot lead, then get out of the way. The President insisted on punting the response to this national pandemic to states, and now he wants to leave them holding the bag. Already nearly 1.5 million state and local workers have been furloughed or laid off. That's only since February, and double the total local public sector jobs we lost during the entire Great Recession more than a decade ago. It would be the height of irony, and a horrible one, that the men and women we've needed the most, emergency management, public health nurses, all of the public employees that have been part of helping us meet the pandemic, would be the ones that would be fired as a result of the economic distress that the virus has created. We're talking about first responders, teachers, nurses, public health, and other essential workers. We need them on the job, not the unemployment line. That's why any new stimulus package must include money for state and local governments. So far, Mitch McConnell is offering zero. But I'm leading a bipartisan effort to deliver $500 billion of frontline states, counties, and municipalities. Every single town, city, and county, regardless of its size, would qualify for direct funding. No one is left out. The SMART Act targets these federal dollars to the areas with the greatest need based on infection rate and lost revenues. The flexible funding can help avoid tax hikes and service cuts, pay for expanded testing and contact tracing, help small businesses, and better serve residents. We need a comprehensive stimulus package that extends unemployment benefits, not cuts them, as Republicans are trying to do. We need greater housing protections for renters and homeowners, and seniors to halt the impending storm of evictions and foreclosure. I have several bills that do exactly that. We need to address the stark reality that if you're black or brown, you're more likely to be infected or die from COVID-19. We have legislation to deal with those disparities. We need more resources to support our hospitals and nursing homes. A trip to the nursing home shouldn't be a death sentence. To ramp up testing and vaccine production, to help struggling small businesses and transit systems, to close the digital divide so no student is left behind, and for childcare so parents can get back to work if they get a call to do so. So I keep saying to my colleagues in Washington, this isn't a red issue or a blue issue. It is a red, white, and blue issue. It is an American issue. For the longest period of time when we were suffering, I would tell my colleagues in Washington, what you see happening to us is coming your way. And maybe they didn't believe it, but it's there now. If Leader McConnell holds true to his word, these next couple of weeks, we have 2 more weeks before the Senate goes to recess. I don't believe we should go into recess until we finish a package. There is no reason that the American people should wait. So the hell with the recess as far as I'm concerned. But if there was a negotiation going on, we could get this done. But if you listen to Senator McConnell, these last 2 weeks are the last chance. We have to pass another stimulus before the next rent or mortgage payment is due, or when state and local governments have to pass constitutionally required balanced budgets. It may be the last chance we have this year. The stakes are high. The pain being felt by countless New Jerseyans is real and palpable. If we don't get this right, if the President and Mitch McConnell refuse to put partisan ideology aside, more people will suffer, and sadly, more will die. When I leave this press conference, I'm heading back to Washington for a session where we're going to continue to fight for what we need in Newark and Essex County and throughout New Jersey to defeat COVID-19. And with that, let me introduce someone who has been a great partner in this. Took the bull by the horns when the pandemic began and said, I'm not waiting for anybody else. I'm making sure we have our own testing and contact tracing, and that's the County Executive, Joe DiVincenzo.
Thank you, Senator Menendez, and thank you for fighting not only for New Jersey, Newark, Essex County, and all the people of the state of New Jersey. Thank you, Mayor Ras Baraka, for hosting this. You know, throughout the country, the unemployment rate's over 20 million people have been unemployed. Here in New Jersey, the percentage is 16%. Here in Newark and Essex County, it's over 20% unemployment. I've been the county exec for the past 18 years. The only time we ever had to lay off people was my first year because we had a huge debt that was left behind. But we were able to hire back everybody within a year. And what we did is we cut the county employment from 4,300 people down to 35. And how we did it was through attrition. We were even able to get through building up a big fund balance is to get through the Great Depression without laying off one person here in Essex County. The reason for that, and we made it, is so that we don't put more people on the unemployment line. But now, fast forward to today, 2020. Everybody knows about the pandemic, all right, the COVID, what we're dealing with each and every day here. We have now in Essex County a $40 million debt that's going into not only this year but into next year. Okay, on the table, of course, is everything, bringing additional revenue, all right, layoffs, and tax increase. And not one of them is a good idea to do at this particular time. We are not in the position that we were in 2008. We're counting on the federal government to once again to bail out with the stimulus funding the state and municipalities, to be able to offset the money that we have in debt here, to be able to, we've lost massive amount of money in revenue. We get massive money from the state. If the state doesn't get the money from the federal government, the state could only do one thing, is cut counties and cut municipalities. which means laying off more people, which means possibly raising taxes. This is so important. And I know Bob and I know Corey are fighting each and every day, but they have their work cut out for them. If we do not receive that money, it's not going to be pretty. So whatever we could do, whatever Bob could do to making sure that he continues to fight for the people of Essex County and to Newark and for the whole New Jersey, is make sure that they do the right thing in Washington as far as making sure, because we did receive CARE Act money, but it doesn't pay for things as far as debt service, as far as revenue losses. It's been very helpful as far as paying for testing, food distribution, rental assistance that we've been doing, and also small business, but it has not been helpful as far as paying debt service. If we do not get that money, tough decisions are going to have to be made, people get hurt, and it will not be a good thing for Essex County, it will not be a good thing for Newark. So keep fighting, Bob.
Thank you very much. Next, I want to have Senator Teresa Ruiz, who is a strong fighter on these issues in the state legislature for Newark and Essex, come up and say a few words. Senator?
Thank you, Senator Menendez. While I'm here at the helm and the seat of the greatest city in the Garden State, I want to take an opportunity to tip my hat and a debt of gratitude to our mayor, who, in lockstep with our county executive and our delegation in the federal government, stepped in, and protected as many families and communities from day one. So thank you, and thank you for letting me be a partner in that effort as well. COVID-19 has highlighted critical circumstances not solely specific to Essex County and New Jersey, but to American government. It highlighted the fact that American governments were established to create safety nets, to provide bridges, to create opportunities of hope for individuals in need. What it also did was highlight the ugly truth of our systems that have not worked in years. The CARES funding that has been provided, while great help, doesn't plug holes in revenues and still forces local level of governments to make decisions of cutting staff, cutting services, and making critical decisions that will not impact just programming, but impact people. Senator Bob Menendez once again has stepped up, not to say this is what New Jersey needs, but to advocate to say this is what human beings need in this time of crisis. The digital divide in New Jersey and across this country is real. We have Latino and African American students still not connected to technology to learn from their homes. We have schools making decisions in less than 6 weeks that they have to open up their school buildings and have to spend money to be sure that those areas are secure and safe, and they're doing it at the expense of perhaps limiting the personnel that they can bring back. You have health departments dealing with how do we continue to provide testing sites and services and connect people. You have undocumented families in the state of New Jersey who have been invisible since day one. The CARES money was a great start, but we need to advocate for resources that give all levels of government the flexibility to do what's right on behalf of the people of the Garden State, of this country, of Essex County, and the greatest city that I call my home, the city of Newark. So to my friend and advocate, thank you for always being on the pulse of passion. Thank you for standing collectively with our communities, and thank you for being a representative. Nuestro senador siempre ha escuchado a nuestras comunidades, siempre ha apoyado a nuestras comunidades, siempre se ha puesto al lado de nuestra familia y nuestra gente. Otra vez está demostrando un orgullo para la comunidad latina, pero un orgullo para cada ser humano, entendiendo las necesidades y haciendo cualquier esfuerzo para asegurarnos que aquí en New Jersey y en toda la nación recibimos la ayuda que necesitamos. Gracias.
Thank you, Senator Ruiz. And I want to acknowledge and thank the Council President, Councilwoman Crump, for being with us as well and being such a strong advocate. Councilwoman, thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from one of the state's leading housing advocates, Arnie Cohen, from the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey, who is a tremendous resource just not only to my staff, but to the people of New Jersey as we navigate the housing crisis and get insights as to what would be the legislative release that would best help people. Arnie, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, County Executive, State Senator, Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Housing Community Development Network is a statewide network of nonprofits and our allies throughout the state that has been fighting for housing justice. We've learned from this pandemic that the best way to fight it is for people to be able to stay at home. We know that housing is healthcare and healthcare is housing. In order for people to be able to stay at home, we need the Senate to be able to pass a package that was already passed by the HEROES Act in the House of Representatives and endorsed by both our senators and introduced in the Senate to have $100 billion in state rental assistance, $75 billion to be able to stop foreclosures, $11.5 billion to be able to house the homeless, and a one-year moratorium on all, I repeat, all foreclosures and evictions. The only way that we're going to be able to fight this is for people to be able to stay at home when they can. What we've seen in New Jersey, even before the pandemic, housing has been a major issue. New Jersey, according to the latest data from the National Income Housing Coalition's Out of Reach report, it costs an individual would have to earn over $29 an hour and able to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment. That puts New Jersey at the 7th least affordable place to live in the country. And again, this is before the pandemic. A report that was just issued by Financial Analysis showed that 40% of New Jersey's renters are at risk of being evicted or not going to be able to pay their rent come August. It is a racial issue in that number is over 50% when we're looking at people of color. And evictions eviction orders have already started. Fortunately, there's a moratorium still in place in New Jersey, but we see that tsunami ready if the federal government does not act to be able to protect renters, homeowners, people who have played by the rules and through no fault of their own find themselves in a horrible position. The unemployment rate in New Jersey is the second worst in the nation, so this is going to be affecting our state very hard, and we stand here in solidarity with our elected officials, and we'll be continuing the advocacy from the grassroots to make sure that across the nation, Mitch McConnell and his colleagues in the Senate are hearing from people that we need a package that includes that housing protection for all Americans. Thank you.
All right, and then finally, our final speaker is a constituent who reached out to my office for help securing his unemployment benefits. Rick Phillips is unfortunately still out of work, and cutting unemployment will only make things harder for him and his family. So Rick, thank you for being willing to share your story. It's good for people to know they're not alone. Thank you.
I don't do this, right? I'm not a politician. I don't speak in front of people, so just forgive me if there's a little bit of stumble here, right? The first thing I'd like to do is to say thank you to Senator Menendez and his entire staff, especially Director of Constituent Services, Jeremy Julis, for helping me and many others through the process of successfully getting our unemployment here in New Jersey. It's not an easy situation with so many people needing so much. I'm from South Orange. I'm an independent contractor. We're called ICs. There are many more of us than there used to be. Sole proprietors, single-member LLCs, or just folks who work for themselves, tradespeople, professional people, artists, technicians, musicians, all working hard for that little piece of the American dream. We're all independent contractors, but no matter what our designation, without enough W-2 reported employment, we have never existed in the world of unemployment assistance, never. Not until this year. For the first time ever, the CARES Act provided financial assistance, a safety net for those of us who are one-person small businesses. I'm a TV director, local sports, boxing, audience, esports. You know, there's a lot of press about how sports are coming back, at least for TV and streaming, but it's very limited and really different. The very few sports that are restarting have a whole new look with no crowds, and that means no full arenas and stadiums, no vendors, no concessions, no ushers, and many fewer people on my side in the TV world. And in entertainment, both theater and music, the same thing applies. No matter what, no matter how, there's new social distance opportunities online, developed for performing arts. They sure don't include full theaters for shows. They don't include packed arenas for concerts. And they don't include any of the jobs for all the countless people who make those events happen. So there are many thousands of us in this part of the country alone who, if we are lucky, are getting a job here and there, or like me, have no work at all. Our clients and our work has ceased to exist due to COVID-19. Those of us who don't have work coming back now need help till we do, whenever that may be. With New Jersey unemployment coupled with federal PUA program, we've got a chance. With rent forbearance, we've got a chance. With mortgage forbearance, we've got a chance. A chance to hold on to our work to come back again in some way, shape, or form. But without all these, we have no chance. We need a continuation of these programs. We need them to survive as professionals, to survive as tradespeople, to survive as independent contractors, to survive as families. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Rick, and I know you say you don't do this, but pretty good job. So you're the only one who got any applause here. So in any event, questions from the press? Well, the proposal that I finally saw this morning in the press doesn't deal with the overwhelming number of things we just talked about here today. It has zero for states and municipalities. Zero for states and municipalities is a world of hurt. It's a world of hurt. Secondly, it does nothing for nursing homes. We saw too many people who were in a nursing home die. The need to stay in a nursing home shouldn't be a death sentence. We think differently. Thirdly, it does not have enough money for testing and contact tracing. The only way we can get to a new normal, the only way I can guarantee any Newarker that in fact their trip to the store, to City Hall, to wherever, has been dramatically mitigated in risk because we test and we contact trace and then we follow those who may have the illness, and then we ultimately quarantine them and have a chance for them to get better. Until we do that universally, we don't have a real, there's no money in the world to meet with all the challenges we have if we don't get that right. They also, on housing, have virtually nothing. So the reality is we have a real housing crisis. It existed before the COVID. It exists now. We need to deal with the housing crisis. So those are just some of the elements for which they have nothing. And so we cannot tolerate nothing. Now, what is shameful is that 2 months ago, the leaders of both of the House and the Senate, Democratic leadership, sent a letter to President Trump and to Majority Leader McConnell to say we're going to need more help. People are going to need more assistance. Let's start now to figure out what that package is. And instead of responding to that simple request for a negotiation, they went off. First, they couldn't decide among themselves, and finally, I guess this morning, they came through with a much more limited package. That's not acceptable. And so each time that this has happened, we as Democrats have had to stand our ground and say, no, that's not enough. It doesn't help people. It doesn't help people in their unemployment. It doesn't help people in their housing. It doesn't help people in their health care. So no, we're not going to agree to this. And that's where we're at right now. Now, a negotiation, the House has already passed their bill. And while it may not be fully acceptable to the Republicans in the Senate, it's something from which to negotiate from. But we cannot accept less than what is necessary. That's what we had to do every time. That's why the CARES Act was made better, because we insisted that we could not accept that which was not going to make the American people as whole as possible. Any other questions from the press? Yes, ma'am. Mayor Baraka.
Well, it's going to be difficult. You're right. We stopped the furloughs from happening for this budget year. Next budget year is coming soon, which means that we have to get prepared for that. We had a little bit of surplus. We were able to cut certain areas, so we saved it. Obviously, next year we won't have this type of surplus, right? We won't. We have, as the county has, a gap in people who are paying their taxes, particularly special taxes around parking and payroll and hotel taxes. Nobody's staying at the hotel. Nobody's traveling. Nobody's parking. We're witnessing a significant revenue loss there, and revenue loss in terms of commercial taxes. So that is going to hit us, and prayerfully, because we don't have this surplus, prayerfully this bill happens. Money goes to the federal, the county governments, and what the senator is saying is money will come directly to the cities. Right now, it doesn't happen. We don't get any money directly to us, but if that happens, that will definitely help us, and that the restrictions are gone, so we don't have to just use it for testing or for housing or for other things. We need to be able to use it to save people's jobs, for unemployment. We need to make sure people can work. We can save police and fire and sanitation and healthcare workers. All the people in the city who are employed, we want to be able to maintain their jobs so we do not have to furlough them or lay them off. I can't hear you.
Okay. So Newark was making big strides and preparing to make big strides in finding long-term solutions to this homelessness problem. Obviously with the threat of mass evictions looming over us, that puts Newark at risk of going backwards on that issue. Would you mind talking a little bit about that and what's at stake and what this shelters would look like if that were to happen, especially in the case of another outbreak?
Well, it's difficult. Right now, we leased a hotel. We have about 300 most difficult to house folks in there. We've given them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We tested them. We are now trying to transition them into transitional and permanent housing through extra money that we got from the federal government to be able to do that just specifically for homelessness, right? To transition them out of that and be able to give money to shelters to continue to house folks that are homeless or residents without addresses, continuously supplementing them so they can bring folks in. But if more people become homeless, if more people are evicted, we just can't handle that. As a matter of fact, Newark gets everybody, because we provide services, more and more people come to the city of Newark because we have a modicum of services. People from New York come to Newark. We're still in a battle with New York City around soda. So the more people we get, the more strain it'll be on our economy to be able to take care of all of these folks, which means we need to make sure that people aren't evicted. And so we should support the finances that's coming from the federal government and support Brittany Timberlake's bill in the state as well. So those things are very important for us, and we're going to continue to push because it could mean a serious disaster for us in the city of Newark, where housing prices are growing. Except we have a moratorium on rent increases now. We put a moratorium on all rent increases in the city of Newark, so you cannot raise your rent right now in the middle of this crisis. So we're doing all that we can, but it's certainly not enough.
When does that moratorium
Right now, it goes until there's no more crisis, and I believe 60 days after that. Yep.
Mayor, I know that you would push for the Port Authority and the Burke administration to screen for symptoms and temperature with COVID-19 and to do the mandatory questionnaire of contact tracers. Have you gotten anywhere with that, or are they still just doing it voluntarily?
They have not agreed to do it. We're still talking to them. And just to be fair, we're still in conversation with Port Authority about them saying they don't have manpower and other kind of force, resources to do what we're asking them to do. But we think that everybody that comes in from those 22 states that are banned, that should be quarantined, that they should, in fact, be given a temperature check, a questionnaire, and be told to quarantine. I think that's the right thing to do. That's what we did in the beginning. When people were first coming in from China, we did that in the beginning, the very beginning. We tested everybody that was coming off of those planes, and we should continue to do the same.
Any other questions from the press?
I got a question for you, Senator.
Yes, sir.
Senator Menendez, the Minority Business Development Administration is tasked with ensuring equity in minority business contracting as well as access to capital. To what degree are you willing to support the permanent creation of a vehicle which democratizes access for Black and Latino entrepreneurs? And in case you haven't noticed, around 40% of Black businesses are estimated to go out of businesses during this pandemic, and we're living in a state where less than 3% of our contracts are being allocated to women, minority, and diverse ventures, as well as a well-publicized lawsuit with the Division of Investments for not allocating into Black investment funds and therefore underlying entities owned by Black communities like the ones that service this community.
Thank you. What press are you with?
Impact the world.
So the answer is I'm very supportive of that effort. As a matter of fact, I lead a annual survey of the Fortune 100 companies to say who is on your corporate board that is diverse, where do you acquire your goods and services from that are diverse, how do you hire that is diverse, and that has pressured a lot of companies to actually begin to act, not anywhere what we want or what we need. Secondly, I am a co-sponsor of legislation that actually does what you're seeking to do. In the Senate, getting 60 votes for that is a hard proposition, is something we continuously fight. We only have 47 Democrats in the Senate. They are virtually all in sync with our proposal. That means we have to get 13 Republicans to join us to pass the legislation, which would create then a clear, not a set-aside because that has been ruled by the court, but it would create a clear responsibility of the federal government to invest and to purchase goods and services from those institutions, businesses that are diverse and that by economics we define in a way that would achieve the same goal. So we're waiting to get more support for it. I hope that when we have the votes, hopefully after this election, we'll make it happen. How much?
How can your constituents
Yeah,
support
listen,
you?
I think that we have Senator Booker is fully on board with this. Obviously, he's a very strong, actually, advocate on it. He sits on committees that are trying to make this happen. I think that having there are several congressional districts in this state, starting there, and then having national organizations which I've spoken to, both Latino and Black-owned business coalitions, to advocate throughout the country. So as Adlai Stevenson used to say, when I get the heat at home, I see the light in Washington. We are trying to create more heat in different parts of the country so we can get more people to join us. Any other questions from the press? If not, thank you all very much. Mayor, thank you for your hospitality and for hosting us, for your leadership. Appreciate it. Okay. All right, my friend.